Welcome to Make the Grade with the Success Doctor, Stephen Green, where you'll discover actionable strategies to help your student to reach their academic goals, to excel at standardized testing, and to plan for the college admissions process painlessly. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Green.
Hello again, everyone. Steve Green. You are listening to the Make the Grade podcast. Any entrepreneurs out there? Anybody concerned about lead generation for your business? The power of using video, the web, graphic design, digital marketing? If so, sharpen your pencils, turn up the volume, and get excited because I have a fantastic guest today, Ted Lau. Ted is from Vancouver, beautiful Vancouver in Canada, Western Canada. As you know, I broadcast here from the East Coast, Philadelphia, in the United States. Ted, how you doing?
I'm well, sir. How are you?
Awesome. I am really happy to have you. Let me tell you the world a little bit about you. Ted Lau is the owner and CEO of Ballistic Arts, founded way back in 2002. You don't look that old. You look like you're 20.
You can't see the gray hair. It's terrible Zoom
Is that
camera.
what it is?
Yeah, that's all.
Ballistic Arts is a high-touch, award-winning lead generation digital marketing agency that focuses on online lead generation and brand awareness for North America's best-known brands. B2B professional service providing companies and membership-based associations. Ballistic Arts has full divisions in lead generation, digital marketing, graphic design, video production, and web development. I can tell you a lot more about that, but let me just pause for a second. If I'm a business and I'm selling online, which I am, and a lot of people are, how important are the things I just mentioned?
They're basically critical, especially in the day of, with I guess even with COVID kind of dying down. But the last couple of years, if you didn't have that, you basically shuttered your doors.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say on a scale of 10, it's like a 12.
but
here's
I was trying not to use
right?
hyperbole, but yeah.
So let me ask you a second question.
Yeah.
How many businesses are really good at doing it on their own?
It's tough. I think a lot of businesses, when we start our businesses, it's usually, we're the technician. We know something, either we're a plumber, a baker, graphic designer, teacher, and we do what we do. But, sales isn't something that's taught in school. Marketing is not something that's taught in school. So you do it on your own. You're going to have to pick up some books and learn, but eventually, you're going to have to, your time is not scalable, right? So you're going to have to figure out how to do it.
All roads lead to Ballistic Arts.
That's the idea.
No, but I got to tell you, I work with a lot of businesses, small entrepreneurs who don't have the time, but maybe more importantly, don't really have the budget sometimes to truly do the digital piece properly, and they get killed. I mean, they can't. It's hard to survive. Ted's roster. Listen to these clients he's got: Century 21, big real estate firm; Tim Hortons, that's a huge restaurant firm; Vancity, I assume that's something to do with Vancouver; Seaspan, Paladin Security, B2Gold. I mean, he marries compelling creative content with precision lead generation data. Ballistic Arts has successfully increased clients' leads by 500%. It's pretty good. One of the top 100 digital agencies in the world. Man, you what are you doing on my show, man? You should be on you should be on a real podcast.
No, man, I thought your show was pretty cool. So I wanted to join. And education is something that is near and dear to my heart. So I wanted to hop on and thanks for having me on the show.
You're welcome. Let me tell a little bit more about you real quick. He's the host of a national marketing podcast, which is called Marketing News Canada. There we go.
Hey. Well, we're supposed to say, I don't think we do that as much anymore.
I know that's the stereotype. I know I shouldn't be that. He's interviewed former Bumble CMO Chelsea Cain-Mclain, Astronaut Colonel Chris Hadfield, Unbounce Chief Strategy Officer Tamara Grominsky, Blacktown influential founder Mark Harrison, and Freshbooks CMO Paul Cowan. Man, maybe I can get on that list. He's an avid NFL fan. They don't even have a team in Canada, and he loves the NFL. Loves to cook plant-based meals. Man, we got that in common. I know Ted was a bro for another mo, and he lives with his wife and daughter. So, Ted, let me start with this. You're an entrepreneur, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it an easy gig?
Is that the question? I think that's a rhtorical question.
There's no script here. You got to get used to that. There's no script. It's an easy gig.
It's a fun gig, but I wouldn't say that it's an easy gig. Yeah.
What makes it tough? Just go where I'm going here. What might make it tough? Do you really know your audience? Okay. Do you really know how to reach them? Do you really know how to get to your client avatar? Do you really have a product that people want? I've worked with people that are trying to sell something. And frankly, you know what their biggest issue is? Nobody cares about what they're selling. You cannot sell ice cubes to Eskimos, right? I mean, or whatever. You cannot, if people don't want what you have, or you cannot create a demand for what you have, you're dead in the water. Forget if you can't even market it. So you're an entrepreneur. When did you get into marketing? Is this something you had to teach yourself? Did you learn from masters? How'd you do it? Tell us about your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, Stephen, great question. And normally for us, it's we don't say Eskimos up here, we say Inuit. And but absolutely, I'm
sorry for the cultural insensitivity.
it's
people know I'm not like that. I love everybody, but I didn't know. So I apologize.
And no, but your question of was I into sales and marketing my whole life? I mean, no, I grew up in the suburbs of Vancouver and really child of immigrants, and I think. The one thing that I did know was, I think I always knew I was going to run my own show. My dad, he worked for the bank. But other than that, my mom, her entire side of the family, they were all solopreneurs, proprietors. My aunt ran a clothing business. Another aunt of mine had an import-export business. My grandfather had a shoe business. So these were all kind of, my mom was a realtor. And so working for somebody, I think just wasn't in our DNA. Now, did I know how to sell and market? No, but I quickly realized that I don't have a whole lot of other talents than, talking to people and making people, realize that, they want to buy something. And so my very first job was actually not a legal job of, in technical terms. I was, immigrant child. We didn't have allowances growing up. Right. And so my parents were like, well, if you want to buy those pair of shoes, you want to buy that Nintendo, you're going to have to, make your own money. I'm like, well, I'm like a
young parent teaches their lessons to their children to actually have to work for some.
Right.
I mean, what's going on in this world?
What's going on? And so I begged and pleaded to get, and we didn't have paper routes, or my mom wouldn't let me get a paper route because, they didn't think it was that safe. And then, they have to kind of walk along with me. And so my mom got me a job as a telemarketer, the very first job.
Now, how old were you at this point?
I was 13 or 14. So the legal working age here in British Columbia in the province is at the time was 15. So I wasn't legally able to work. So my mother basically applied for me under her name, and she got the job.
Pretty sneaky.
And it was for this company called Fabricland. And Fabricland sells, reams of fabric to old ladies who want to, make sweaters and clothes and whatnot for whatever. And they were having their spring sale, and my job, they printed out this big stack of names on dot matrix paper. You remember dot matrix paper with the holes on the side? Yeah. And so they would print it in these little lines of numbers and
it looked like the old numbers on scoreboards where it was like
that's exactly
dots. Right. Wow.
Yeah. And I got a quarter for every phone call that I made. And so I had a script and I would read it and I would just leave voicemails. And I actually found that I had a lot of fun. And I think maybe because cold calling to aunts and grandmas predominantly on that list, they were super friendly. I think a lot of them just wanted to talk to somebody. This is back in the early 90s. And so I had a lot of fun just learning how to do that. Most people didn't really hang up on me. And then the subsequent jobs that I got afterwards were, selling computers at Staples or selling sneakers at Foot Locker or something like that. And so I knew that I could talk to people, but I didn't actually learn to actually sell until I started my business. And I realized that, running a business, like you said, the challenges of running a business is when you're a solopreneur, maybe you have like one or two people, you're the chief bottle washer. And so I had to go sell and then do the work, sell and do the work. But the thing is, when you're selling, no one's doing the work. When you're doing the work, no one's selling. So I kept having these peaks and valleys. Ended up hiring a sales coach. And he got me to really kind of manage my time and really understand that it's not just about talking, but really understanding the pains that people have and how your product or your service can solve that pain. And that really
Basic
has
sales
been
stuff.
that's sales stuff, basic sales stuff. But you know what, I'm sure you come across this a lot
I just get off a phone call right before this where I got a mother almost in tears about a situation with their child. So is it a long and winding road from telemarketing to sell cloth to being Ballistic Arts? Or was it kind of a linear next logical
there
step?
was no, I don't think it was all that linear. I think, well, maybe a little bit. Like, so back in I want to say high school, they had this program where you punched in, it was back in the old computers, like the DOS. They had these DOS programs where they'd ask you questions of like, you know, what are your personality traits and all this kind of stuff, and it would spit out, you know, this is possibly your career when you grow up. And one of the careers was graphic designer. And again, child of immigrants who don't know anything. Like, it was just lawyer, doctor, lawyer. That those are the two options growing up as a Chinese kid, right? That's your career. And so when graphic designer spat up, and I'm like, Dad, I want to be a graphic designer. My dad's just like, what is that? And no, right? But lo and behold, I get a little internship at a local paper where I got to design newspaper ads on Corel Draw. This is even before Adobe.
Corel Pro. I remember Corel.
And I remember being very infatuated with the fact that, like, hey, I can do some kind of quote unquote art. It wasn't a great art, but, you know, something where people actually paid for it and I can actually see it, you know, in physical form. And I thought that was really intriguing and really didn't think much of it because my parents were like, really, you know, no, this is not going to happen. But, you know, I got into university. I did a business and a comms degree. I ended up finishing the comms part, not the business part, because I really didn't like the business part, funny enough. And I did digital video as a part of that communications degree. And I come out of school. I was thinking I was going to be a documentary filmmaker. You know, Vancouver has a Hollywood North feel to it. I had many a friend that were like, oh, Dad, you got to finish school early. We're making my hand over fist. You're going to love it. A lot of parties, late hours. Great. 9/11 happens right before I graduate. All jobs cease to exist in the film industry for about 8-10 months. My friends that all were flush with cash all of a sudden had no jobs. So I just started freelancing, and I met my former business partner on an indie film shoot. And he was just like, hey, we seem to work well together. Do you want to start a business? And my actual reaction was, sure. How hard could it be? It was literally the mantra.
Yeah. How hard could it be?
How hard could it be? And I think there's a little bit of, I don't know if you want to call it ignorance is bliss mentality when it comes to being entrepreneurs. Like, sure, how hard could it be? Even today, a lot of things of how I've done things is kind of got this mentality. Like, sure, how hard could it be? We started as a video production company back in the day where DVDs were $15 a pop. We taped everything on like little mini DV tapes and then had to firewire this cable into a computer to edit it. I didn't know anybody because I was 21, 22, knocking on doors for mom and pa restaurants going, do you need a video? You know, hey guys, and they're like, no, I don't even have a TV in here. But hey, I noticed that you did your brochure. That's actually a really nice brochure. I actually need some new menus done. Can you do that? And I'm like, yes, I can. They're like, how much? And I don't know. I made it up on the spot again, thinking, how hard could it be? Go back to the quote unquote office, which was the room above my parents' garage, and tell my partner I didn't sell any video today, but we're making a menu and some brochures for a restaurant. Okay. And so we go do that. And again, you know, I think just the work ethic that I had growing up was, you know, you do it, you do what you say you're going to do and you do it on time. So did it on budget, on time. You know, word got around, hey, these guys can do graphic design work. Oh yeah. Okay, cool. And so we get hired here and there. And then also another client goes, hey, this web thing, you know, like websites, like this fad, it's really not going away, is it? Like, I'm like, no, I don't think it is. And so, well, hey, you built one for yourself, right? You built your own website. Yeah. Can you build me one? Yes, we can. And, well, how much was it? And I remember just, again, making a number on the spot and figuring it out. And then we kind of just ebb and flowed from there. we got in Vancouver, there's a big junior mining exploration industry here. And so I had a friend whose dad was the CEO of a junior mining exploration group of companies. And so we did a lot of branding and work for them. And it was great and flush with cash for a while. I remember I had this guy who was like, I raised $20 million, Ted, and I need you to do a brand and a website and all this kind of stuff in 2 weeks so I can, raise more money to investors. I'm like, that's impossible. That's not going to happen. And, this was the Wild West at the time where guy just pulled out his checkbook and he was like, how much do you need to make it happen? And I was like, what? And in my head, I knew kind of my number and I tripled it. And it was still probably at the end of the day, not enough because the guy was super demanding, but hey, we did that job. We go get paid, all good. And then the recession happens, right? So the recession happens and these companies that were like writing us blank checks.
Yeah, so you're talking like 2007, 8, 9.
2008, 2009. And recession's happening. Business is quickly drying up. These clients that were flush with cash are now owing us money and I'm chasing these guys down to get paid. And the last guy that I was chasing down, he's like, oh yeah, just come down to my office and I'll write you the check. And it's been like 2-3 weeks by then. So, that he'd owe us money. So I go and get the check. He's like, hey, Ted, you do really good work. Give us a call on Monday. And, we got more work for you. Like, all right. Well, all I cared about was really just getting the cash in from the check and call him on Monday and the phones didn't answer. It's disconnected. I have never heard from this guy ever again. So I don't know what happened. So then we had the 2010 Olympics in Vancouver, and that really helped our economy from the real estate standpoint. You might have heard that Vancouver, I think Vancouver, New York, LA, maybe Toronto are probably the four most expensive, and San Francisco, obviously, the most expensive places to unaffordable real estate, most expensive places to live. And so Vancouver started taking off with real estate development. And so we did a ton of real estate marketing for developers here for probably a good decade. And then I bought out my partner 3 years ago. And again, I was trying to grow. Hey, so talking to my clients, trying to grow. What do you think we should do? How can we help you? And I'm not sure I really just want to do creative anymore. What else do you need? And they're like, well, we need social media. Why don't you help us with social media? And I was like, oh my God, I hate social media. Why would you want me to do social media? There's so many guys out there that do social media, just hire them. And he's like, well, you know what, Ted, you guys do a lot of great creative work, right? You're good at storytelling, you're good at creative. And a lot of the social media guys are, they're really good at like the numbers and, getting the likes, but I don't really know what they're doing. And I don't think it's actually helping anything. Right. And I'm like, okay, well, let me go and think about it, do some research. And so I go and talk to a bunch of my buddies that do SEO, that do social media. And I kind of ask them like, well, so what do you do? And they're like, well, yeah, no, our job is to get people found on Google or, get them more likes on Facebook and Instagram. And I was thinking, well, I'm a small business owner and I'm cheap. If I'm paying people thousands of dollars a month, I'm like, so are you getting them like any leads or sales? They're like, no. I'm thinking if I'm paying someone thousands of dollars a month to do my marketing, it darn well better.
It's an adult podcast.
Oh, adult podcast. Darn well better give me a return. Like, if not, this is not worth it. And so I kind of went away again, thinking, how hard could it be? Approach these clients again. I'm like, hey, so if I got you these, like, what if I did your marketing, you paid me on a monthly retainer, and I actually got you sales leads? And I had this one client that said, Ted, if you do that, I'll never leave you. I'm like, all right. So I go and stand up to my, 20 some odd staff. And I'm like, hey, this is the direction change for the company and all this kind of stuff. And, you imagine that, the entrepreneur standing up in the boardroom, rah, making everybody feeling warm and fuzzy. And yeah, we're going to do this. That was the opposite, Stephen, of what happened in my reality.
To quit.
Right? They all wanted to quit. I ended up having basically not quite a screaming match, but like confrontational conversations with my team. And within, I want to say 10 months of that, I had 80% turnover. I had actually thought I was going to like, hey, I'm going to pay for these courses. You guys are going to do them. It's going to be happy and all that kind of stuff. No one wanted to take the course. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to take the course, right? Like, I know everyone knows how to use quote unquote Facebook and Insta, but like, how do you actually do it? So I took the course. The last assignment, the final assignment I did all this kind of stuff. And then I just replaced the school logo with one of my clients' logo. I would go and present it to my client and go, hey, what do you think about this? Client's like, that's exactly what I need. I'm like, really? How much do you think you'd pay for that? And the client throws me a number. I'm like, oh, funny you should say that. That's exactly how much I was going to charge. And that's how I started that department. And so you asking me about, was there any kind of linear plan? No, there wasn't, but it was a lot of trying to figure out how to help clients, how to grow. And I think I've done a lot of work on myself and thinking about, what else I would have done in my life, and really kind of boiled down to, it's not like, yes, I do love marketing. Editing was my first love, video editing, but it ultimately boiled down to, I just didn't want to work for somebody, and I joke,
which is exactly the entrepreneurial journey.
It is. And I joke that I'm certifiably unemployable,
Yeah, well, many entrepreneurs are, because they're not good listeners. But so if my short-term memory is right, you started out as marketing, kind of morphed into graphic design, then into web design, then into lead generation, into social media, which all happen to be critically important to any business, entrepreneurs or otherwise. Marketing, it's a constantly evolving thing. The way people market now is different than 10 years ago. It's way different than 40 or 50 years ago. I actually I was watching a documentary on some station about how commercials have evolved. And in the old days, like in the 50s and 60s, when television was kind of just really getting national, the commercials were super dry. I mean, they were all factual, very conservative. Now it's almost the opposite. It's almost like a shock thing. Like you gotta really like get somebody out of their pattern interrupt. What's your opinion on this, Ted? And by the way, my guest is Ted Lau, Ballistic Arts, an agency that provides graphic design, web development, video production, digital marketing, in his 20th year. And you're on the Make the Grade podcast, listening to it. My goal here is to give you some information, help you to take some action to accelerate your journey to success. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a student, you're hearing Ted's story. Ted, marketing, it's changed. What do you think are the biggest paradigm shifts in marketing? And do you view it from the standpoint of marketing design, in other words, creating marketing for a company, or do you view it from the standpoint of how companies should be thinking about their brand awareness? Maybe, I don't know if that's the correct marketing term. I'm not a marketing expert.
Well, you know what?
Because it goes both directions, right? It's what you want people to think about you, but it's also what people do think about you.
Well, I was going to say, like, the short answer would have been both, but I think let's start with, I didn't invent advertising and marketing, but I can tell you that it's changed a lot. And I studied the history of advertising. Again, I have a communications degree, and studied how people consume information, how they consume communication, how they consume marketing. And so how it all started, just a little quick history lesson, is the first bit of advertising actually came from Quaker Oats, the Quaker with the oatmeal. So
it's big around here. Yes.
Right. And so they were, oats, it's commodity, but the guys or whoever it was that started it, just started putting up a little sign, Quaker Oats, made by Quakers. And that little recognition went a long way. And over time, you've seen, branding like Coca-Cola that's been miraculous, or McDonald's. Those are brands that we all know. Nike with, Michael Jordan and whatnot. For a long time, advertising was one way. The theory was called the hypodermic needle. So imagine, like, here's my information. It's a needle, and I inject it into your arm. Now you've received that information. You're going to do what I kind of say. And so, you remember like Lucky cigarettes and all that kind of stuff, or Marlboro Man, and they tell you it's smooth, and you listen, and that's it.
So basically it's sort of an authority voice, and you're going lockstep with it.
You're going lockstep, because back then, the only way that we as a society, as citizens, got our communication was one way. It was either through the radio, through the newspaper.
Yeah. In other words, right? Not social media,
television, right? There's no social media. And there was a lot of times, there was not a whole lot of editorial content, especially when things first came out.
Interesting.
Then when newspapers came on with editorial information, magazines, the
Because that seems
proliferation of
so
magazines.
dated now, but I understand in the context of the times, it makes sense. So then that evolved into
broadcasting. So why they call it broadcasting is it broadly casts information to an audience. And, we joke in school that, a lot of basic TV, especially in the 80s, growing up in the 80s, they were basically 30-minute commercials sandwiched with little commercials in between. If you think about, like, I watched He-Man growing up, or Ninja Turtles. It was literally a 30-minute, or G.I. Joes. My sister watched, was it Rainbow Bright? And they were basically 30-minute commercials selling this toy. And then sandwiched in between those, episodes were other little commercials for Lego and all this other stuff. Now,
you're right.
And so that's all the one-way communication. And then, with social media, with what we call now narrowcasting, but like, basically, back in the day was when we grew up, it was like, 13 channels at most, right? And now there's like 300 channels and still nothing on. I think that's the song by, is it Bruce Springsteen that says that, right? And so, and so there was now a lot of options. So a lot of opportunity for you to have your specific interest, and the echo chamber that we talk about in social media was actually starting to happen when there were specialty channels, right? You now have the Life Network, the Discovery Channel, the Science Channel, whatever, History Channel. And so A&E did a really good job on that. The National Geographic did a really good job on that. And so people started to find their own interests, and then marketers would then start serving up that information that was specific to a particular demographic. And then it changed even more and fractured even more with, Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. Obviously, there was MySpace and whatnot before that, but, with YouTube, with Facebook, Google.
In other words, a two-way communication.
Yeah. So
the
then
ability to engage directly.
And then Twitter. Yeah. All those tools. Now, all of a sudden, you as a consumer, I as a consumer have a voice. I can actually say, hey, this product is garbage, or, I did not have a good experience. Having the reviews gave power to the consumer. And so when user-generated content started coming on, we didn't really know how to handle it. We still don't as marketers for the most part, because you don't really know. It's kind of the wild, wild west still, because you might think that what I'm doing here is going to be, oh yeah, it's going to go viral, and it doesn't, or vice versa. Somebody does some little video, but somehow it tugs on the hearts and strings of folks, and then all of a sudden here we go.
There's a whole new sort of category within marketing, which is like the influencer.
Well, that was the next thing. After that became the influencers. Yep.
Yeah. So you now have got like a person who may have nothing to do with anything, but because they got a big following, whether it's on whatever social media, TikTok, I don't know, Instagram, you name it, all of a sudden they're an expert in something just because they're an expert in it, right? And it's like, if they say to do it, a lot of times it's in things that don't necessarily affect me, but like fashion or music, or maybe food. I think people are a little more discerning, like, or maybe a car, but, you get these people who are like, they're like fashionistas, and like, oh, everybody's wearing green this year. Green's the color of the year, right? Now all of a sudden everybody's wearing green because so-and-so who's a super influencer person in that little world saying it. But that's just as compelling, I guess, in the marketing world as a commercial, right? I mean, so this is the same reason that the Nikes of the world bring in the Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan become almost synonymous with Nike, maybe even more so than his basketball ability, because Nike was such a powerful marketing force, and he was such a good basketball player that their synergy was really tremendous. Forget the money that they made as a marketing lesson, But it got to the point where obviously most people were never going to be able to play basketball even close to Michael Jordan's level. So the closest way you could get to that was to buy the same shoes that he wore, right?
It's all about the aspiration, right?
But that's the idea. Like, well, I may never be able to dunk a basketball from the foul line, but I can wear the same shoes as somebody who can do it.
And and what he represents as a human being, and the greatness and all that kind of stuff is kind of what you want to emulate, right? And I think that's a part of advertising, and I think that actually hasn't changed, right? Like there's a lot of the medium has changed, right? So again, studying Marshall McLuhan. So Marshall McLuhan is a is kind of our godfather of our work in the communications field. And he had the saying called the medium is the message, right? And so he argued that why Nixon lost the election to Kennedy was not his ideas. It was the fact that Kennedy was, the first president of the United States that was a candidate that was able to be on camera and be photogenic. Nixon before that won because he was able to dominate on the radio. And so each iteration, Obama, social media, and I guess subsequently, Trump as well. So the medium you have to understand so that you can then deliver your message in a way, because the medium, again, is the message, how you deliver it, how people use it. And we don't know. I think when people started the internet, they didn't expect, to have a proliferation of cat videos or things like that, or influencers. No one ever
taking
thought
pictures of their food or whatever.
Exactly, right? No one thought about that. Now, when you asked me the previous question, is it, do I look from it from a creative standpoint, or do I look from a brand awareness standpoint? And the actual answer is you kind of have to look at it from a holistic standpoint. Now, I know this is a bit more high level than someone, maybe your listeners who are entrepreneurs, small business.
I get a very intelligent audience.
But I mean, just in terms of like, the breadth of work that you might be doing, but things to consider is that like, there's an element of your brand, which as a small business owner myself, I am for a lot of the time, I am the brand, right? Yeah. I got a nice logo and all that kind of stuff, but like people do business with people they like. And so I need to be able to live and breathe that brand.
Ted, let me ask you this. And I got one more question, and we're going to start wrapping this up. Does the oldest sales technique in the book is basically some variant of, I tell you or identify a problem you have, and then I give you a solution to fix it, right? Ted, you got dirty clothes and here's detergent to clean them. Or, hey, you're failing chemistry. I have a system to teach you chemistry. That's never really going to go away, right? I think all these things you're talking about are different ways to communicate that, different ways to elicit that emotional response in people, different ways to get people I mean, that's the big thing now. And you may have said this in a way that, let me say in a different way is, look, what the best thing for my business is? People who I've had good success with who promote for me, word of mouth, right? They're telling their friends, they're telling their friends, they're telling their friends. I can't create that by any marketing plan.
Yes, you can actually. No, actually, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Well, that's even better. And we need to talk about that. But I mean, that's really ultimately the idea of, I got a problem and I need a solution. I got a flat tire. I need to go to the tire store. I'm thirsty. I got to go buy some water. My pen don't have ink. I got to go get a new pen. I think that's kind of universal, but everything you're talking about, the media as the message, the evolution of the sort of psychology of sales, which could probably be a college major, all that to me is very, very interesting. Let me ask you this. You communicated an idea to me called empathy leadership. Okay. Talk about that really quickly. And then we're going to wrap this around and send you on your merry way. Well,
actually, if you guys ever listen to the author Brene Brown, she talks a lot about that, dare to lead and whatnot. But I think how I look at it is, I've had my business for 20 years. And when I started, I
can you believe it?
20 years is a long time. And when the mentors that I had were rougher and gruffer alpha male that were like, shut up and do it, or just, that kind of stuff, like that mentality of just like, we're going to do it, just go balls to the wall or whatever the sayings are, right?
I'm going to lead. And if you choose to follow, you can follow.
Yeah. Stuff like that. And it was a lot of tough love and stuff like that. I think for a particular type of employee, a particular type of person will embrace that. But a lot of the times, and what I've started to see is, in my growth as a leader, you can't always just be this hard, this hard tough love kind of person. And, like you're not a military sergeant. And so mental health kind of is mental health is a thing that we are now all talking about. Very big athletes are talking about, right? Naomi and Osaka and all those folks are talking about it. And these are real things that affect everyday people. And before it would have been like, well, what's wrong with Steven because he's sad? Like, oh, come on, his life isn't that bad. Like, that's not empathy, right? But if we're able to, show a little bit of humanity and vulnerability, that, you know what, we don't have all the answers, and we're all here on this earth for a limited amount of time. How can we help one another? I have found that has actually been more powerful in my leadership journey than the other tactics and strategies, quote unquote, that I've used. All I now doing is meeting my team where they're at. And if I can do that and help them, grow a little bit during their time at Ballistic Arts, I find that they will put in more time and effort.
So it's not enough to be a technically good leader. You also want to be a leader on kind of a personal level, because people might be with you 5 years, 10 years, or a month, but you want to be a better person when they leave than when they got there.
That's basically it. I'm in a very glamorous industry where it's fairly transient. So people come and go all the time. I've had people stay, like you said, a couple of months to, 10 years. But more often than not, the average shelf life of somebody that's on my team is 18 months to 36 months. And so that's not a very long time. And so
by the time you get them coached up, they're moving on to your competitor.
Exactly. And I've found that not even competitor. I have lots of people, because it's, like I said, very transient, a lot of creative people. People leave to like do their music, try their own thing. They want to get into fashion now, or they want to get into esports, like all sorts of different things. And you know what? That's okay.
How do you feel about that though? Do you feel like a proud parent kind of cutting your little baby bird loose? Or do you feel like, I gave you the best years of my life, I trained you up, and now you're stabbing me in the back? Or
I think in the past, I definitely thought the latter, like, wow, we spent all this time and energy just, and now
just as you're getting good, you're
just to get, but now I think, maybe I'm a little older, wiser, maybe it's just, I don't know what it is, but I think I've had a lot of mentors and people kind of give me their time and space to grow. And I kind of have used it as a pay it forward. And so if I can help, I've had recently, also over COVID, people talk about the great resignation. And I had a number of, I had one person that was coaching in my team, and they decided to go into esports. I had someone else who was a fundamental part of my business, who decided they realized over COVID, they didn't want to be in front of a computer for the rest of their lives. And I'm like, well, if that's the case, chances are this is not the field for you, right?
Probably not.
But rather than making them wrong, rather than ostracizing them and kicking them out and all the kind of stuff, I was like, look, that's great. It's really good that you know that. I run my own business. I know how to start a business. I'd be more than happy to give you coaching and slowly transition you out over 6 months. So by the end of 2021, you're going to be out, and we're going to have a game plan so that you start your business, and we can, slowly transition someone else into your shoes. Actually, in fact, we ended up not replacing that role and allowed us a longer trajectory to decide what is really the right fit for our team now. And so that actually creates a closeness from a human being to another human being. And now we're, still in touch. And it's not going to be the case for everybody. Some people just come and go and they're like, thanks. A lot of people that I coach are like, yeah, I don't hear from them.
Well, there's a difference between people there for a paycheck versus a career. Let me give you a really quick scenario of something I'm doing, and then I'm gonna do something real quick, and then we're gonna be done. One of my I guess altruistic projects is a legacy program I'm trying to set up in the education world, where we, through funding and sometimes my own money, provide scholarships to kids who might otherwise not be able to get it. And I have them actually sign a contract. And one of the part of it is have skin in the game. I don't want to give a scholarship to a child who's going to quit after 2 months, because some of these kids don't have the chops. They need to be coached up, tutored. But the biggest stipulation in there, and I talk about them, I say, make sure you understand this, is once you get through this program and you're successful, the only thank you I ever want is that you fund another person, or 2 or 5, whatever you can afford. And there's no money, there's no number there. It's not like it's 1,000. I know what I'm giving them as a scholarship, but there's no number there. It's not 1,000, 2,000, 10,000. It's just, you are committing to the social contract. You're putting out there in the karma of the universe that if this helps you, I'm telling you, I don't know, it's a year, 10 years, 100 years, you're going to do the same thing for somebody else. And hopefully the programs I'm setting up now will still be in existence and they can plug them into there, or maybe it's something they start on their own and the legacy sort of unravels into different unpeelings of the onion, so to speak. But that's something I kind of came up with in like a meditative dream, which is a little woo-woo, and I don't usually get woo-woo on this podcast, but it's really been powerful. In December was the first time that actually happened. I had somebody who had given a scholarship, graduated, actually went into a business with somebody else who I'd worked with, but didn't go through the same program, and just sponsored 2 kids into the program. I mean, it's pretty cool. There's no financial reward to me that at all. I'm not asking for one. It's not about that, but it's super gratifying when that happens. And maybe that's something you could kind of put together in your business, if it makes sense to you. Ted Lau from beautiful Vancouver, Canada. Ted, you want to play everybody's favorite Make the Right podcast game?
Yes, sir.
Fave 5. I don't know if you listen to one. Maybe this is a shock to you. Hey, here's what I'm going to do. This is like a Rorschach test. If you want to go way back into the 50s.
Yeah. All right.
I am going to say something and you tell me your favorite thing in that, whatever category that is.
Okay. All right. Good.
Now, as a graphic designer, this first one might be a little funky. Ready? This one's easy. Number 1. Okay. Color.
Black and red. I need 2. Black and red.
Black and red. Yeah. I don't think anybody's ever said black. Some people don't even think of black as a color.
A lot of people don't think black is a color.
It's interesting. They think of it like as a blend of colors or something. Red.
That's why I say black and red. It's kind of my combo.
So you're kind of a foodie guy, a little bit anyway.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Favorite food, favorite dessert. I'll give you 2 here. Here you can have 2.
Favorite food, plant-based food or any food?
This is your world now. To cook, eat, I don't know, whatever. Jump out, throw out the window. What's your favorite food? I know it's a toughie in a world where there's so many options. I
actually am really into this the Szechuan dish right now called dan dan noodles. It's literally just a whole thing of noodles with spicy peanut sauce, and I put like plant-based mince, but it's a lot of usually pork. Sort of like a ramen-ish kind of. It's like a ramen, but it's kind of a thicker sauce. It's kind of soupy with peanut sauce, and it's very heavy, very thick, tons of calories.
You cook this yourself, or you just?
I make it myself all the time.
Dang.
Dessert
when I'm in Vancouver, you can make it for me.
Yeah.
How about dessert? What do you?
Dessert would. You know what? I used to be a huge profiteroles guy. I'm into Black Forest cake. But lately, so we went out somewhere and I found a Lindt chocolate, 100% cacao, which you would think like, oh, that sounds disgusting.
Sounds really bitter.
It's basically bitter. There's no sugar in it. It's all 100% cacao. Really good with red wine. Really good with scotch.
Okay, so you're pairing your food with your beverages.
Yes, sir.
I wasn't going to be on my list, but what's your beverage? Let's throw this in here since you brought it up.
I'm a single malt guy.
Single malt, okay.
Probably the Bruichladdich Port Charlotte 9.
Is that like one of these like $700 bottles?
Nah, it's not cheap, but it's not $700.
Okay, well, not that you can't afford it, but man. So the malt and this cacao cake, that's like better than sex.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. But hey, it's a kid show. It's a kid show, right?
So I don't know. All right. Music. What kind of music you like? You're from the Northwest.
I am a huge Michael Franti fan. He is my number 1 favorite artist right now.
Michael Franti. Nice. Travel. Favorite place you've been?
We want to go back to Paris. We've been to Paris a couple of times. We want to go back to Paris. We are going to Hawaii next, actually, not Paris.
Yeah, but not a bad list so far. Paris
and
Hawaii.
My wife.
I went to Paris on my honeymoon, by the way.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. So did we. That's why we went back.
Many lunae ago. Yeah.
We went to Paris for a honeymoon. 10 years later, we brought our daughter and did our 10-year wedding anniversary.
Something we have in common. We are Paris honeymoon twins.
Exactly. A destination for us that we haven't gone to that we do.
Yeah, give me a bucket list thing here.
Croatia and Greece. So Dubrovnik and what did my wife say?
Santorini.
Santorini.
That's right. One of the more famous islands.
Probably Amalfi Coast as well. Yeah.
Oh. Hey, this might be a tricky one. This is the last one. Ready?
All right.
Favorite podcast?
Oh, well, obviously I got to say Make the Grade, my friend.
There you go. You are correct on that one.
Do I get a ding ding?
Tell us real quick, Ted. I want to give some love to this. Tell us about your podcast.
So Marketing News Canada.
Podcasters got to help each other out, right?
Absolutely. So Marketing News Canada is Canada's #1 podcast for all things marketing, advertising, and communication. Yeah, we have a lot of followers. We've had, it was started by my friend, Darren Kovac. He owns another agency called Jelly Marketing. They do mostly PR and SEO. And, he's had it for 5 years. He actually had a season on Amazon Prime.
Which is a long time for a podcast, by the way.
Yeah. And he called me during COVID and he was like, hey, you ever think of hosting a podcast? I'm like, no, I haven't. It's like, well, I got 60 guests between now and October. This is back in May. And he's like, I got, 4 kids. My wife's doing her master's. I got 2 other businesses. I can't just do that, like help. So I got to help him, and we've interviewed some great people. So co-founder of Netflix, Mark Randolph, Bumble, former Bumble CMO.
Your guest list is
right?
Heavyweight. I mean, you got some good people on there.
Absolutely. So
do they have to be Canadian businesses?
No. It's just, it's the, I'll say this here. I'm not sure Darren's going to love the fact that I'm going to share you this little secret, but Marketing News Canada, why he wanted to do this from an advertiser's lens. To get advertisers, hey, it's Canada, and so that's a segment of our buying persona. So yeah, we'll give you a few bucks. So it's actually been easier to attract advertisers by saying, we're Marketing News Canada as opposed to just Marketing News.
Marketing News Vancouver or whatever.
Or he actually was trying to do North America, but either way, they liked the fact that it was segmented. They had the advertisers, but we have marketers from all over, right? I interviewed Karina Kogan, the former CMO of Peloton, right? She's in New York, and we've interviewed.
I mean, these are semi-household names.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, not the people per se, but the companies for sure.
The companies for sure. We've interviewed the general manager of Uber North America, I want to say. I don't know if it's North America or Canada, but either way, like we've interviewed a ton of different folks.
I don't know if I can promise it to you, but I know this guy that has an incredible education company. I might be able to get him on your podcast.
Yeah. Maybe, well, hey.
Depends on the contract.
I'll have your people call my people. We'll figure it out.
Have your people call my people. And I'll see if I can make it happen. Ted, anything we did not talk about that you want to get into really, really fast? And we're going to sign off. This is the Make the Grade podcast.
Yes,
I am
sir.
Steve Green. My guest, Ted Lau. Arts.com. Ted, I'm going to give you the last word here.
Yeah, no, I just want to thank you, Stephen, for your time today and your guests for listening. I think if anyone has, questions,
how do they reach you?
They can just find me on LinkedIn under my name, Ted Lau, or
LAU.
Just go to LAU, or you go to ballisticarts.com. Our blog is there, and it has a lot of useful tips and tricks for people who have questions about marketing that might not be able to, hire an agency.
Do you do any, like a consult? Like, let's say I'm a company. I don't know if I can afford you. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. Is there like I don't know, half-hour consult or sort of marketing analysis? Are you able to do that for people?
Yeah, absolutely. If you just drop the name, hey, Stephen Green from Make the Grade podcast, I heard you, and I want to just chat with you.
Go.
Absolutely. We'll make it happen. Free consult, 30 minutes, an hour. It doesn't really matter.
There you go. Hey, if you're listening to this, you don't say Ted's got a really cool background, which I assume he designed.
My team designed, actually.
Yeah, it's cool. It's really colorful, and I think it represents your stuff. Hey, we are going to wrap it up. Here's my ask. If you listen to this and you think this can help anybody, share it, please. This podcast is all about information and getting the information to the right people to listen to help them. My goal is to impact as many people as I can to help them become better students, better entrepreneurs, better people. Like that story I told about the paying it forward. It's all about people helping people. And part of that is information. And I love it. Put some comments underneath in the chat if you want. If you have questions, reach out to Ted. The guy is obviously brilliant. He has made it 20 years in the business. A lot of people don't last 3 months in. Trust me on that. So you got a really, really, really good resource here. Ted, thanks one last time. We're going to wrap this up, and we will see everybody next time.
Thanks, Stephen.
You've been listening to Make the Grade with the Success Doctor, Stephen Green. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe. For more resources and support, please visit makethegrade.net.